My name is Petro Swart and I am a second-year graduate student in the Sport Leadership and Management program. This proposed study seeking to understand the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the lives of international student athletes is what I intend to use for my master's thesis under the supervision of Dr. Belli. With the amount of changes and unprecedented events of 2020, the cancellation and postponement of the NCAA and Olympic seasons pale in comparison. However, with sport being a salient part of many athletes' identities and providing an anchor of routine and social support, the lives of student athletes have been impacted in many ways. International student athletes face additional unique stresses with travel bans, lockdowns, and the US immigration and customs enforcement making unexpected changes to visa requirements in July. The novelty of both the coronavirus and lockdown interventions have led to a rapidly growing field of knowledge. Researchers have shown that individuals have experienced increased feelings of rumination and fear and an intolerance of uncertainty. Indirect and direct trauma experiences due to the pandemic include a loss of control, routine, and social support networks. Disruption to their training has also put athletes at risk of injury when they do return to competition. Practitioners recommend a limited news intake and for athletes to maintain both cardiovascular and resistance training, and a growth mindset. For college athletes, organizational stress is the most prominent source of stress. Coping mechanisms that athletes use to deal with organizational stress include assessing the threats and benefits to challenges, increased effort or seeking more social support, changing behavior to meet the demands of their coaches, rationalizing negative feedback or experiences, denial, and substance abuse. These stresses and strategies occurred in a world without COVID, so our hope is to understand if there are differences in how athletes perceived their organizational stress and how they coped with them throughout the pandemic. The sudden loss of a sports season doesn't happen often, so we look to Olympic boycotts and athlete retirement to hope to understand this event. Positively, retirement can provide opportunities for character development, and the cessation of organizational stress can be a relief to athletes. Negatively, a strong athletic identity can lead to some adjustment issues, particularly struggling with the loss of group membership. Overall, these findings are positive for the present study, as they suggest that athletes' experience of the pandemic may not be entirely negative. International student athletes make up about 13,000 students in America each year and face unique adjustment issues when starting college, such as overcoming language barriers and adjusting to the individualized learning style in U.S. institutions. Research has shown that performance is less important to these athletes, who focus more on the student part of their identities. Their team does play a crucial role in their well-being, as these relationships are vital to them not only for maintaining their scholarships, but also creating a sense of home for them. Prior research mostly comes from a pre-COVID world, and the new knowledge being developed is mostly in the form of recommendations for well-being. Our aim, therefore, is to examine the lived experiences of international student athletes who were attending or were signed to attend U.S. colleges during the COVID-19 pandemic. We seek to understand the true stories of how international student athletes experienced the last 11 months, particularly in terms of their mental health, identity, and performance as student and athlete. In order to uncover the lived experiences of international student athletes, we have decided on an existential phenomenological design which seeks to understand the mundane experiences of life in as unbiased a way as possible. We have chosen this open-ended question in order to have conversational interviews with athletes where they lead the direction of conversation and determine our findings. Importantly, I have to note, if my accent does not make it obvious, that I am an international student myself, which makes limiting my own bias and experiences important in this study. The exact number of participants will be determined by data saturation, but we aim to have at least 8 interviews with international student athletes who are attending or had planned on attending U.S. colleges on an F1 visa during the fall of 2020. Following IRD approval and a pilot study to ensure the clarity of our research question, we will seek to obtain permission from coaches to contact their athletes. A bracketing interview and reflexive journal will be used to limit my own personal bias in the study. Informed consent to participate and to record remote interviews, as well as continued assent to share their stories, will be obtained from participants. The analysis and coding for themes will be completed by both myself and Dr. Belli in order to further limit bias and ensure that we are accurately representing both what is said and left unsaid by international student athletes. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to sharing our results with you soon.